Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Prankit, and I lead the IoT practice here at Ingram Micro. For those of you who may not be familiar with us, we are a value-added distributor for the channel, and we've built an ecosystem of technology providers that enables us to deliver end-to-end verticalized solutions in the AI and IoT space. We also provide a range of services to our channel partners, supporting them from the very beginning and helping them bring these amazing solutions to their end users, no matter what their core capabilities are. So today we've got a very special session lined up for you. Instead of the usual webinar format with slides and presentations, we're hosting a conversation with two exceptional leaders from the world of intelligent workplaces, Michael Grant, COO of Metricus, and Amir Einav, CEO of PointGrab. And we'll be diving right into intelligent workplaces. What does it mean? Why does it matter? How can organizations like Metricus, PointGrab, and Ingram help bring these solutions to life? We've also received some excellent audience questions during registration, so thanks for that. We'll address those as we go through the discussion. However, if you didn't get a chance to submit your question earlier, you should be able to put your question in the chat box, and we'll leave some time at the end for that Q&A. So with that, let's get started. Amir and Michael, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. So Michael, maybe let's start with you. Can you give us and the audience like a quick intro about yourself, about Metricus, and how you got involved in the world of intelligent workplaces?
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having us on, Prankit. It's good to be involved and sharing what we know and talking to people about a subject that is forever growing and forever changing. I'm doing a talk next week in Barcelona about hybrid work and how it's just the norm, but it's very fluid, the space we work in. So I'm Michael Grant. I'm the COO and co-founder of Metricus. We're a software as a service business, and we help customers and partners working with Prankit and their partner community as well, and with PointGrab and their partners, to understand how buildings are being used, how efficient they are or how not efficient they are from an occupancy perspective, whether that's at a desk level, a meeting room level, at a floor level, and at a building level. And then you overlay those data sets with energy and indoor air quality, and you start to build a very good picture of how buildings are operating either really well or not really. And generally in our space, it's the not really. We haven't touched a building yet where we started to get the data together to deliver the outcomes that we haven't been able to see improvements. How did we get into this space? I've been running software companies for probably 15 years now. And actually, I was brought into the first version of Metricus by Cisco to help them understand how they should run this operationally from a scale perspective. And that's how I got involved. So yeah, and we've been Metricus for 5 and a bit years. Still growing, still learning. The market is evolving, very rapidly, as I said earlier. But it's a really interesting market to be involved in. I think that the next few years, especially with some of the things that Trump has put forward, will help all of us in this space, the people working on it, the people working in it, and the customers. Everyone in the US government back to work 5 days a week, done. Amazon are doing it, AWS, X are doing it. And I think more and more larger companies will follow suit. So people more so than ever, I think, given the current, financial crisis globally, every improvement and everything you can stretch out of your real estate and the cash you can give back is really important.
Yeah, thanks for that, Michael. Great. And I'm very keen to kind of dive into some of those points as we go through. But yeah, over to you, Amir. Same question.
Yeah,
if you can
excellent.
Give us that
Thank
intro.
You for the intro. So I'm Amir Einav. I'm actually, while PointGrab has been deploying since 2017 and worldwide, I'm actually new here, just 1 year in the company. I joined from a IoT cybersecurity perspective, so very different than this. And previously I worked for 10 years in HP Enterprise. So various background here in software and technology. I thought, when I joined the PointGrab, I saw it as an opportunity for two things. One is the market is an interesting market. It's addressing something that is changing now, which is the office and the way that the people are behaving in the office, and as well as the ability to work in an AI product. So, being a product guy, that was alluring me to join, to take PointGrab. And I'm very happy with this decision. It's been a very exciting 1 year. From PointGrab perspective, and basically my perspective on PointGrab and how we are addressing our priorities, we are a product company. So definitely an accurate, reliable, great product, features and so forth. That's one aspect. The second aspect, which I found to be super important for PointGrab and to fit into the way that this market is structured, and I'm happy to be in this chat with you guys, it's exactly the ecosystem. So the value is created by components, by elements, and this value is what the customers are looking for. And having our partners like you guys and partners in general, that's how the ecosystem is developing a value for quite a dynamic environment. And the third priority that I put, and definitely PointGrab in this year put effort into it, is everything related to, let's say, reliability and frictionless deployment. So the ability for PointGrab to be easily deliver value fast to our end customers. So nice to meet you. Awesome. Nice to be here.
Thanks, Amir. And yeah, again, I think there's a lot to unpack there, which I'm kind of keen to dive into as we go through today. But before we get too far ahead, I did want to spend a little bit of time at the beginning, just kind of defining the term intelligent workplaces. We've heard a lot of terms like smart buildings, smart offices. I mean, IoT is probably the big umbrella term that everyone uses. So I think it'll be good to try and see if we can align on a description. And I'll kick it off. So the way that I've kind of look at intelligent workplace is it's more sort of like a seamless interaction of a lot of different technologies and systems that are enabling outcomes as a whole, like data-driven decision-making and enhancing productivity and open collaboration, all of that stuff. So for me, it's hard to look at it as like one tangible thing, as opposed to like a lot of different things working together. But I'd love to kind of hear your definitions as well and kind of descriptions of what is intelligent workspace, what it is that we're actually talking about today. So maybe we'll start off with you, Amir, if you have some thoughts on this.
So intelligent workspace I think it's a great term because it's really capturing the change that this world is taking. Sam Altman was saying earlier, we are in the intelligent age. And what he really means was in the context of machines are empowering humans. And if you think about it, machines need oil, and oil is data. So if you know what's going on in the office, that data is really the foundation of anything you will do, any decision you will make, any automation you'll bring. And good data will be the oil for everything that you want to do. So for me, intelligent workplace is a place where you can answer easily any sort of question that you have. Do I have too much space? Do I need to change the cleaning room? Is somebody abusing my meeting rooms? Whatever sort of question that comes along in the life and of the building and the office, you need that data. And so the way I see our sensors to be part of this intelligent workplace is the infrastructure. It's the infrastructure of data, the data collection and data extraction to our partner ecosystem to bring those answers to our customers. So that's in a nutshell how intelligent workplace and PointGrab sensors are really intertwined.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Sort of about the transparency as well, I take it, in terms of actually what's happening in terms of how the building's being utilized and how the building's kind of evolving with the employees and the workers there. And Michael, how about you? Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. Slightly different answers from people on this, right? But I think whether it's intelligent workplace, smart workplace, workplace of the future, hybrid work is here, right? It's here, it's done. We shouldn't be talking about it anymore. I think JLL also mentioned that in their report earlier that came out early Jan. The way we work has changed. The buildings we work in haven't changed. So are they intelligent workplaces at the moment? Some of them are, some of them aren't. But it depends on, I think it depends on what you're trying to get back from your building or back from your workplace. And it goes in stages. Do you have everyone coming back 5 days a week? If not, have you got hybrid? Yes. Do you need them to book desks, not book desks? Have you downsized your real estate already? Have you not? So you do need something to help downsize. I think it can be all in, looking at occupancy, capacity, indoor air quality, energy, and then you're overlaying AI to do predictive occupancy and predictive energy usage and predictive maintenance. Or it can be as simple as, we don't actually have anything yet, so anything we put in will make our workplace more intelligent than it was last week. So, but I think all of that relates to then, Amir was talking about data and oil earlier on, and I do believe data is the new oil, as understanding your goals of your intelligent workplace is one of the most important things. How intelligent you then make it is then up to you as a business based on your, the finances you have before you draw, if you're given budget to start something, where do you start? Generally, you've got to try and find an ROI, but it could be as simple as understanding your meeting room usage, because if now you're back, there's definitely not enough meeting rooms, right? And that's putting some devices in or using what's already there to understand meeting room usage. It might be as simple as putting desk or meeting room booking system in so that you can make the best use of the space. It might be putting indoor air quality sensors in because you want it to be as comfortable and productive as possible for the people now coming back to the space. So I think it's anything that gives you data back out of your building that you never had before to help you enhance the building and understand its operations and the way it's working and how efficient or not it is. I think for me, that's what an intelligent workplace or smart building is. It doesn't need to be top to bottom. It can be some simple things that make it smarter than it was prior to COVID, and now we're all back to the work, or back in the office. Can be simple things as well.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm hearing is that it is very much a journey, and I think where you start on the journey is going to depend on your specific building and your requirements and kind of, I guess, the key drivers that you have, which I know we covered a few different. There's kind of energy and the ESG component, there's employee satisfaction, there's employee well-being, and I think all of them together are kind of the driving force for this intelligent workplace solutions. And I think the bit I just want to add to that as well is for the partners listening to this, there is massive opportunity for partners as well to kind of include their services as wraparounds for what is being delivered through an intelligent workplace. And we'll dive into some of that later today, but just, at the top of it, you can think about things like, data consultancy. Like Amir mentioned, now there's suddenly all of this data coming in, but someone needs to take that data and evolve it and help drive the outcome, which we'll sort of touch upon a bit more. And there's some other aspects as well. So I think before we kind of dive into all of that, I want you to kind of come back to Metricus for a moment. And Michael, just I guess from your perspective, as a platform company, could you speak a bit more about sort of the key role that Metricus is playing in enabling all those things that you were just talking about in terms of, how you're positioned?
Yeah, and again, it comes back to we do a lot for some customers and we do a little for others, but it comes back to your point, Prankit, you just made. You can connect a whole building up, but if no one's looking at the data and no one's willing to take action on the data, then it's still not probably a smart workplace or an intelligent building, because the data's there, but no one's looking at it and no one's taking action. Some of our customers, we've got customers who just look at indoor air quality to make sure that they've got a healthy environment for people. So we connect to existing systems and then we connect to new sensors that people want to deploy and put in. Then we have people who want to understand the people count and then what happens to the indoor air quality with the people count, so they do both. Then you have the people that also want to overlay the energy usage on top of that so they can get a full picture and understanding. So it depends on the customer's day one goals and objectives and what their roadmap then turns out to be. Fortunately, every customer grows. No customer says, I'm going to do one building and then stop, because they see the ROI. It's a big thing that you mentioned, Prankit, for anyone on here and the partners and people looking at how to drive the value out. If you don't set the goals and objectives out day one and you have stakeholder buy-in, then it's hard to try and expand this out and hard to drive value back out to yourselves or to your customers. So we work on that a lot with our customers and our partners. We don't just, someone just says, oh, connect this building up, it's got 50,000 data points. And we say, great, that's another, 10,000 of revenue or whatever that is. It's why do they want to do it? What are the goals and objectives? Because we have customers that start with commercial buildings, but they also then have retail spaces, right? And we do retail spaces as well, whether that's, shopping centers with, individual shops in, whether that's pubs and restaurants or retail stores. You start in one place, but you can end up in another. But the goals and objectives day one are the most important part, and we get involved in that from the start, because otherwise it's not going to be successful. And the customer will do one building and then say, well, this is all good, but how do I take action from this? And if you don't agree that up front, then it doesn't matter what you put in, whether it's Metricus and PointGrab and Airthings or, Kytera or whoever it is on the IoT side, they won't do any more if they don't see ROI or value from it. So we get involved in lots of different areas and in lots of different types of buildings, but it all depends on the customer requirements and the outcome of how deep and wide we go day 1, day 2, day 3, and day 4 and onwards.
Yeah. It's sort of the business case, the ROI, the outcome that's really helping you drive kind of what the platform would be doing, what's the data that you'd be pulling into the platform.
Yeah, and that also evolves our strategy as a business, right? We don't, it's not an if you build it, they will come type scenario now. It's we built the first version, we're on version 4 now, and it's evolving. What customers need and want out of buildings is starting to evolve, right? And depending on what happens in the government in the US and other areas, different things become a priority. A few years ago, energy was expensive everywhere, so everything was about energy. But now in the US, energy doesn't cost much, and with the changes that Trump's made, energy is not a thing. ESG is not a thing, really. Depending on who you speak to. But one of the things that will never change is the cost of real estate and how empty real estate really actually is. So measuring that and giving that back is probably one of the key things. But again, you do need people to look at the data and be prepared to take action on the data once you gather it. Otherwise, it's data for data's sake.
No, absolutely. And Amir, I guess from PointGrab's perspective, you're bringing in that occupancy data that kind of Michael was speaking about. Can you talk to that a little bit? Just kind of what is the value that data brings and how organizations are using that data today?
Yeah, sure. So, there are basically, when you're looking at the PointGrab offering, which is basically the sensors and the management platform, the one that will capture this data to be able to send it over to Metricus and to partners, and the ability of the partners to value out of the data, our offering is relatively simple. It's the sensors deployed and the platform as such. Then what you do with it is really endless. And actually, that's what's my point about the intelligent workplace to be. It's really layers, right? So the foundation, the infrastructure is the data and the ability to collect the data. And if you have that data, then it's really up to you when and how. Like Michael was saying, it's evolving. Things can be important now and not important in 2 years' time. And you still have those sensors in the ceiling from 3 years back, and at that time. So one of the key elements that you want to do is you want to have sensors that are very flexible. So you can move them around. They can do different things. So for instance, our sensor is capable of doing traffic counting. So you can measure, the whole floor status if you put them on the entrances, as well as it can capture data of a specific occupancy, specific location. And also it has presence. So if you just want to know 1-0 in the context of should I turn on the lights now? It's all happening in the same unit. And the point about the unit is it's flexible. You can move it around. It's the same unit. You bought 100 of those. You can decide. Things are dynamic. The office of today is not the office of tomorrow, and it's probably not the office of yesterday, hopefully. And you were talking about the drivers, and Michael mentioned, of course, hybrid is a major driver. So every company going into the world of hybrid, starting to figure out that they need to change things. And then suddenly management goes to return to office 5 days a week, boom, everything changes again, right? The occupancy is changing and the setup is made. I'm hearing now they don't have enough seats, not enough desks, as if they were surprised to find out that they have more employees than they thought when they are coming back to office. So this the hybrid is definitely a driver. I'm predicting this year, 2025, we'll see more and more of AI as a driver to real estate decisions, and people will start saying, optimal utilization, given the fact that we implemented nice generative AI tools that are taking on tasks. Maybe not jobs, but tasks. And if they take tasks, do I need as many people as I used to have? And how is this impacting? And the third driver is basically which is also something that 25, 26 probably. It's more of the bigger role of Gen Z in the workforce. That's really, young people. And young people that are, as much as we are always saying the younger people are different. These team are different because they grew up with a mobile phone. They have a very different habits in the way that they act, and they need mentorship. They need collaboration. Collaboration is not that obvious for them. They need collaboration set up. So the office will be starting to adjust to these sort of new dynamics, new drivers. And that's why, from to your question, we see a lot of value in the fact that the sensors are, of course, accurate and versatile. You can use the same technology in different contexts, but definitely you also need an easy, management platform that allows you to easily define if the furniture is changing. We introduce in 24, we introduce object detection on the sensors. What it means is the ability of the sensor to say what are the objects in the room. And why is that relevant? Because you find out the office is dynamic and you have a floor plan from 3 years ago. That's not how it actually looks like. There is no sofa over there. There is a pool table. Okay, so of course the numbers you had before are not relevant anymore. So you need to know as a real estate services man and somebody that actually has a view of the office, a woman has a view of the office, you need to know what's going on. And to know what's going on, you want the sensors to help you out. So the management platform allows you to have that sort of good visibility and ability to move sensors around and to understand the furniture, understand the layout. We introduce a new coffee machine. Okay, so we want to start counting the use of that coffee machine over there. It was not there before. We just need to go into the platform and easily add an area of interest. And from now on, let's count them. And let's now start doing utilization, start doing statistics, and start seeing if it's too used. Maybe there are big lines over there, like we see a lot of in cafeterias. How long is the line? Is a regular question we're getting. How big is the serving area line? I mean, is people upset because of it's about experience, right? It's about utilization, it's about experience, and it's about the operation that needs to be efficient. So that's basically how I see the drivers and how they're impacting customer decisions that are ongoing now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I can see that this is probably a very kind of valid challenge for especially the larger enterprise organizations with multiple offices, we're going to deal with a lot of real estate, a lot of different sites. But essentially what I'm hearing is, what we're saying is the workplace is evolving. So with that, we need whatever hardware that goes in terms of sensors or devices to be able to evolve in terms of change how they're being used, also on a software level. And then the platform needs to also evolve. That's kind of ingesting all of that data and turning it into outcomes. And I think when we're talking about the data itself evolving, I think there's a question I wanted to come back to you, Michael, just around I've heard this term being thrown around a lot, which is kind of having that single pane of glass, which is one place where everyone can see everything. Now, I just wanted to kind of get your take on if you think that is kind of the direction things are headed in. Is it sort of a different approach that's needed with integrations and workflows? I mean, kind of what are your thoughts on that type of approach when you're talking about all of this data?
I think, unfortunately, single pane of glass is a bit of a myth, right? And I think it's a saying that has been flogged to death. I think a lot of companies sell on it and then overpromise and underdeliver. And our industry, and I don't know how many people are on, I can see some of them, but I haven't got all of them, but customers and have once bitten, twice shy, right? Saying, I've got a single platform and a single, interface, and it does everything that you need. You don't need anything else. We don't believe in that. I don't believe in that at all. We have a partner network because we can't do everything on our own. PointGrab's an important partner. Amir was talking about flexibility of offices. We have some customers who have got cornerstone buildings with very long leases and they're not going to move out of, and they want to know everything about that space. So they'll put sensors everywhere. Now, the data that they get from that building, that comes via Metricus, but it could go into something like ServiceNow because they use ServiceNow WSD as the reporting and the stacking tool for their buildings and their offices. So you don't even need the Metricus front end because they're used to a tool like ServiceNow. It might go into Power BI. We have customers who just use our API because all of their reporting at an operational level and a board level, they just get Power BI reports. They get them printed or delivered to their inbox and they read them. So that data is there for them. And they then will have data that we don't store in Metricus, like the cost of a lease, the cost of an employee, the cost per department. We don't store that like it might be in an IWMS or a CAFM, but some of our customers take it from the CAFM and take the data from Metricus and then they put it into another system. We do have data views and visualizations, and we are running AI and machine learning against things now and starting to test it. I don't think there's enough data in our whole industry to do something really smart, but the machine learning piece is getting there quite quickly. But I don't think there's one platform that's a single pane of glass that does everything for every user, right? Because some of our bigger customers, we'd like the front end to be live for hosting people in important buildings. So what rooms available, what's not available. So live data for those people is important. Can I take a guest and put them into the cinema room, which I'm in now? Is that available? Yes or no? If it is, right, let me book it. And I need to book it through ServiceNow, WSD, or AppSpace, or Cadence, or whatever system, or as simple as Outlook, whatever they're using. But they'll only use that as a snapshot to get some live data to put it into another system. Then the reporting might be somewhere else. So I think as a collective, we can do a lot for our customers and our partners, but I don't believe there's one company or one partner that can do it all on their own. And I don't believe in the single pane of glass kind of myth or theory or product, right? I don't think it exists as a universal thing to provide value to everybody that you need, that are your stakeholders in buildings, right? Customers have got different stakeholders that require different ways to pull and push the data and use the data.
Yeah, I think that there's an excellent point because even, at Ingram, the way we've kind of built our ecosystem of solutions and tech in general is to make sure everything is open, meaning that you can integrate, a sensor with a platform, which can then be integrated into something else. So as a customer, you're never kind of locked into just a single ecosystem or a single, piece of hardware or software. And so we actually, we try and encourage that with our partners as well. If they want to build their own integrations and, use that as their kind of moat or their USP and go to the customer base in that way, we kind of encourage that, okay, build your own integrations, show us how this can be part of the larger ecosystem that you're playing in. And, we're here to support you. So I think those excellent points there.
And don't get me wrong. When we first started as Metricus, we would used to tell everyone we were the single pane of glass that they needed, right? But we quickly realized as everything evolved and customers evolved and requirements evolved that actually we can't be. No, I don't think anyone can be.
Yeah, nice.
Absolutely. So I'm going to move to some audience submitted questions now. This was as part of the registration when the audience signed up, they submitted some questions. I do want to take the time to remind the audience that's attending right now that they can also submit their questions using the Q&A chat box, and we will be able to address them towards the end. So the first question I've got here is, what is the ROI or return on investment for companies in smart workplace solutions? And how can it be effectively communicated to stakeholders? So I'll just add to that question as well. I would probably also say, who are the correct stakeholders to involve in early discussions? And then, how do you demonstrate that value to them early on? So this is an open question to both Amir and Michael, if you want to comment on.
Amir, I'll let you take that. I've been talking a lot, so.
You have. No, I'm joking. You have a much better, much nicer accent. Let's face it. I mean, it's
I don't know if an Australian accent is nicer, but I'm Australian. I can talk the ears off a donkey, so
Yeah. So to your question, I think the stakeholders vary, but in most cases, again, the experience from our perspective, the perspective of the data, the stakeholders are, and this is actually connecting well to the way Michael described the evolution of Metricus platform. The stakeholder vary also on the customer side. So the main stakeholder, which is the real estate, commercial real estate service providers, originally were all about utilization. So this was the main ROI, and it is the main ROI. It's very easy. You can explain ROI when you calculate the floor, the square foot in London. The numbers are so significant that it's easy to show that you can justify an investment on the intelligent workplace because you will be saving on very expensive floor and investment in a facilities in that location. But like I mentioned earlier, related to ecosystem, there are more use cases coming up, more things that you can do or you should do if you think of the modern office, and a lot to do with the end user experience, the occupant experience. The occupant experience will then come to a different type of platform, maybe a booking application, maybe a experience application on your mobile phone. And this is where I'm connecting to the Metricos evolution. But for us to partner with Metricos is great because they're exposing us to so many. The ecosystem of Metricos is so wide, and they can show the customer so many different things you can do with the data that more use cases are coming up, improving the ROI. One thing that I think, and the third element of ROI is, of course, energy and savings in energy. Not important the same way across the world. I think Micah was mentioning the US changing heart, but totally the opposite is Singapore, right? Where you have people that are totally concerned about the fines they're getting for ESG numbers. It's totally main topic of discussion. And in reality, as we know, everybody who visited Singapore, the AC is working 24 hours. I mean, it's never nice outside compared to what you want to have inside. But there's always a good reason why the AC is working. And if you want a good ROI, you want to avoid wasting energy from ESG metrics, but also from reality money in the bank. You don't want to spend that much money. So these are three elements of the ROI. They are one on top of each other. If you have a Metricos style of platform which you can use any of those one on top of each other, it's the same sensor technology. So you're saying data, but you use it in different way, and the ROI pieces are accumulating one on top of each other.
Awesome. Yeah. And go ahead, Michael.
Just to add to that, the stakeholders that use the occupancy data can be the real estate team to understand how much real estate they've got, but also it can be the facilities team to understand how they're operating their building management system, right? So we've got a public use case with Accenture, which some people may or may not have seen, is that the first building we did with them was a building in Castellana 85 in Spain. And it was quite a simple project to start with, and then it expanded in that building, and now we're in lots of buildings. But the first one was putting in sensors that did the people count in and out, and then doing all the meeting rooms, which we've done with Point Club. And then we did indoor air quality. So then after 3 weeks, we could see the people count in and out when they were coming in and when they were leaving. But with the indoor air quality, you could see when the heating was coming on, because they do need to heat buildings in Spain in some areas, heating the building for hours before anyone was in, and then hours after people left. Now, the people using that data, number one, it's the office manager, a lady whose name escapes me, the real estate team, but then the facilities team, and then going to the landlord. And then what they did was say to the landlord, hey, you can turn our BMS on our floors, please, on later and off earlier. And then when they had more data over time, they started to change that even further. And then the office manager said, they've got 5 floors in that building. On Thursdays and Fridays, we're going to turn off 1 floor, and Fridays, we're going to turn off 2 floors. Then they can turn the heating and cooling off completely on those floors. There's 3 different stakeholders in there using those data sets, right? So it very quickly expands out from one stakeholder to multiple stakeholders. The same data can drive different outcomes and different value back into the business, right? That's the beauty of, I think, smart and intelligent buildings. is it's not just one stakeholder that can derive value from what we start to roll out together. As you know, I'm not sure how many end customers are on here, but if you think about partners and value to the end customers, there's a lot of value to drive out to the end customer.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Michael. I'll move on to the second question, which I think someone just posted in the chat as well, which is essentially the same question I had here from the registration, which is, does the panel consider that there's a digital divide between the design, engineering, and construction or DEC phases of the building's development and the O&M or operations and maintenance phases of its life cycle? I think it might just be worded a little differently in the chat. So yeah. I think just explaining this a little further for the audience, as far as my understanding is that there is a divide. Essentially, the DEC phase is sort of an earlier phase with architects, engineers, where they need to kind of deliver a building to an exact specification. And then the O&M phase kind of comes in later, which is more around sort of the facilities and operational staff who then need to maintain the building post-construction. And the divide kind of exists there because there's a lack of communication and collaboration between the two groups. So my perspective is the earlier that you get involved in these conversations, the smoother the project kind of goes and the smoother the handoff is between the two phases, especially if you do have maybe O&M stakeholders involved earlier on. But this might not be always feasible. But I'm open to kind of see what your thoughts would be, Michael and Amir, on this question.
Yeah, I think there's always been a divide. The value engineering out is something that would always happen. So start with a budget of this wide, and then the budget goes down, and then you see what you can value engineer out, right? And then the people who've done the construction then hand it over to the O&M people and say, good luck, see you later, I've done my bit and I've been paid. I think if people looked at a total cost of ownership over the life of that asset or that building or that fit out, if it's a whole building, you probably should do that a hell of a lot more. But if you're in a multi-tenanted building and you're the tenant in that building, you've got 5 floors, looking at the total cost of ownership of that and putting more in day one to spend less year 1 to year 10, year 15, however long you've got that lease for, getting the O&M people involved day one for them to be able to explain what they need and why they need it up front can only help, right? And there is a divide. Will that divide ever be a loving relationship? I would hope it could be, but I'm not sure if it ever will be. I do think it's getting better, right? Because of the digital side of things, the way that buildings are, or let's just say, someone's fitting out some floors in a new building. The way it's now designed, people are putting in technology day one to understand the occupancy. They're putting in point grab sensors from day one to say, right, this is how we're going to measure and monitor this space to understand its true utilization and how effective the meeting rooms are. Have we got enough meeting rooms? Are they of the right shape and size to make informed decisions? Because what generally happens is the building's designed, people move in, they complain about it, they get a fit out company to change it, they pull walls down, they don't do anything with the heating and the cooling, and then all of that is thrown out. And then they get someone to come in from a workplace team that have clicker counters and they count how many people are using each space. If you put a solution in day one based on your goals and objectives that you need to keep looking at and evolving over time, you've got a solution that can move when you need to move things. You can, the flexibility of the point grab sensors is probably the best on the market. You can take them from one building to another, one floor to another, one area to another. You can redeploy them very quickly. And for the customer, that's what they want, right? They want flexibility of solutions. And then, if you do that up front, I'm kind of dragging on now, so I'll shut up in a second. If you do that up front, over time, that total cost of ownership comes down rather than keeps going up. And generally, because they're not married, it does go up over time rather than either staying flat or even going down a little bit, which you can do if you bring the two together and you put the right solutions in day one and the teams are all working towards the same goal.
I can just add to that a little because Michael already covered, I think, the whole topic. And indeed, the topic is sort of clear. So I can just add to that some nuances or anecdotes. The topic is clear. There is a divide, right? And then how do you manage, how do you help make this divide smooth? So I give you 3 things that we did in Point Grab over the last year. Actually, one of them we just announced last week. So in the early stage, in the design stage, there is the designer. The designer has a beautiful modern building in eyes, and she is building something that is, and then there comes this guy and said, I need to put sensors, and they are white. Mm-hmm. And the ceiling is beautiful color of the company, all about the logo. What is this white sensors has to do with my beautiful ceiling? So last week we came up with this color matching program, exactly to say to the designer, no problem, those 5 beautiful meeting rooms, executive, the ceiling is some wooden, you can match the color of the sensors to that thing. So we have a flexibility to provide that, but that's a good example of that divide, right? Because the folks that wants intelligence, they want the data, but the designer wants a beautiful building. And we see that in so many places. So we just thought, okay, we'll take it. We'll take care of it. No worries, guys. We'll just step in. We'll do those custom colored devices. No worries. Another thing in that context is, originally you're thinking, how do you price these things? And we found out it's actually good to price a CapEx budget and an OpEx budget exactly to tailor to those 2 groups that are coming one after another. And the CapEx guy have their budget to put everything in place, but it's actually the operations budget that will come later, year after year, when the building is there. And maybe the last point I was thinking about it just now as we were talking, and this is actually something we did with you, Prankit and Ingram Micro. We came up with this certification program for our partner installers. And why? Because the installers are in the build stage, right? I put it, I go, it's done. I don't care if it's accurate. I don't care where it's located, actually. And then the operations folks will not get accurate data. They won't know if it's in the right room at all, because maybe the sensor 1 is in room 5. Who cares? I finished, I installed. So we came up with this certification program to make sure that our installers really understand their job, really understand that they're responsible for the success of the customer in those later stages. So the divide is there. Just a matter of us companies to figure out how to overcome the divide and build the bridges between the 2 sections of the building lifecycle.
No, absolutely. Thanks, Samir. And actually, I just want to add to that. You're talking about the installation part of it, and I think the domain knowledge required when sort of deploying these sensors is often sort of underestimated. And I think this is where at Ingram, at least, we've kind of trained and certified our own engineers to be able to support our partners with these projects. And I think there's, we have to appreciate the care and attention to detail that's required, both at sort of the site survey stage, which I think is very critical, but also at the physical installation stage, so that handoff goes smoothly. So I've got another question. What I'll do is I'm going to merge this question because there's a question that was submitted as part of the registration.
There's a couple of questions there's a couple of questions in the Q&A, yeah. Frank. Yeah.
No, exactly. So that one, and I'm merging it with, I'll mention both the questions and we can answer it together. So the question I had in the registration form was, with data being historic and so varied across organizations, how can we really make informed decisions? And the live question I've got is, FM teams are often excited to deploy smart building solutions and appreciate the visibility and technology they offer. However, many struggle to turn this data into actionable business use cases and valuable insights. So how can Metricus or PointGrab close out this gap and deliver meaningful outcomes? So I think both questions essentially are about the data, right? That the data can be varied, it's from different sources, it's telling different stories. How can you turn that into something that's meaningful as opposed to looking at a bunch of CSV files with timestamps on them?
Mia, do you want to go? Do you want to go first to me, or do you want me to go? I don't mind.
No, you can go. Sure, I can add on yours.
I think so. As Mia mentioned this early on, that data is the new oil. But unless you refine oil, it's useless, right? Unless you refine the data, it's useless. So it comes back to early on. What are your goals and objectives? What are you trying to achieve? And if you understand that, then you figure out the data that you need, the fidelity of that data that you need, then you can you can collect the data, you can put it into a platform, you can take it from a platform via an API, and you can put it into something like Power BI or WSD or Tableau or Looker or whatever it might be. But you still need humans to look at that data to take action, right? You can on the AI side, you can look at the predictive occupancy and the predictive energy use. And if you start to do building automation, you can do some cool stuff there. But gathering all of that data still needs people to take action. So this comes back to your point earlier, Prankit, as well, about partners being able to add value to the customer, because just because you connect everything up, and you might look at the data yourself, and we always look at the data as Metricus and think, wow, there's huge amounts of savings there. Look how inefficient that space is, or look how much energy they're using versus the people. But unless you give that to the right people who need that to take action on it, then it goes back to the earlier conversation, is will you grow into that account? Will you help your customer grow and help them achieve their goals and objectives and ROI? No. So the data is one thing. Putting it in a format for each stakeholder who needs it is another thing. And then going and driving that value and taking action together is, I think, how you go from the cool, shiny stuff to make it all look good and put it in because you should put it in because it's great technology, to what are the real business drivers and the outcomes. And the CEO, the CIO, and most importantly, the CFO, they don't care unless it's got a value behind it to them as a business. And it depends on the value that you're trying to drive out.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Michael. Amir, anything to add to that?
I think the only thing I can add to that, and I totally agree with the way that Michael described the story of how you make value out of this. The only thing I would refer to the refinement of the data point, or refinement of the oil point, is that it has to be good data. I mean, if you're feeding in the monster with junk, the outcome won't be tasty. That's just, there's no much about it. So I think from my side, and I said that in the early part where I took over the company, one of the things I was excited to see is the quality of the algorithms and the quality of the accuracy of the algorithms. But what I also realized is that if the installation or the deployment is not perfect, no, the data will, as much as we'll give it over to the Metricus platform, it won't work because it's not correct. It's not what really happening in the office. So if you want to believe in the data, you need to have good product, and you have to have a very, very accurate, clean deployment, which we can achieve with our partners. So, folks that are joining us and working with us to make this a reality. And in that context, we also introduced, I think in the middle of the year, a mobile commissioning app. Because I think you won't be surprised to know that if you're writing down a serial number with that many digits and then go to a website and click it in, no, it's not going to happen. And so then my guy says, we see this sensor, but it's in Australia. It's not where you think it is. Because your number is not correct. It's just not. So the mobile application allows you to scan the sensor and see, okay, this is the one I'm installing. Boom, goes into the platform immediately. So you're avoiding those issues and mistakes. That's where the data is becoming more accurate. Not because the sensor is not accurate by itself. The sensor is super accurate. But the whole thing needs to be tight. If it's tight, you have good data, it will go up, and it will fulfill your use cases.
And just to add, I didn't finish on the Accenture bit earlier to add to the data and the use case. Accenture saved 30,000 euros in the first 3 months by changing the HVAC settings. Right, I think I saw Phil Thrift on, but I think he's jumped off. But Phil is doing the same thing for one of our joint customers. Right, the value and the return is huge if we get this right. But Accenture, 30,000 euros in the first 3 months. Then they made other changes, and now from an energy perspective, they're saving 5,000 euros a day on energy in that building. That's why we're in other buildings. That's when you achieve success like that, then it gets rolled out, then it goes to other areas. We've done the same thing in some retail. James Palmer, our head of energy and building sustainability, we did that for a retail customer, and we saved them 60% on energy on average in the buildings we first went to, which is crazy. We were estimating 20, right? But we saved them 60%. So, but as Amir just said, it has to be accurate data. It has to be good data because, part of my language, shit in, shit out, right? So.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it seems like there's massive potential, obviously, in this space. And what I'm also hearing is there's obviously all of these different links in the chain. So there's sort of what is the sensor, the hardware that's being used, so the data it produces. how is that sensor being installed so that it actually is looking at the correct thing and sending correct data? How is that data being enriched? What platform it's going to? Then how are you helping the client make sense of that data? And I think what this opens up is a lot of opportunities for partners to build their service wraparounds and focus on areas they want to focus on, but they at the same time, they know that there's a big ecosystem they can rely on. So if they don't want to deploy the sensor themselves, that's fine. We can deploy it for them, and they can focus on the data consultancy part as an example. But if they want to build their own services around the professional side, the professional services side, or the managed service or maintenance side of then suddenly maintaining hundreds, if not thousands of devices that have now been added on site, again, there's huge scope for partners to kind of focus on those areas or those niches and really build out their capabilities and expertise while having the support of a large ecosystem behind them to help them sort of enable them in this journey. So I've got another question I see that popped up in the chat. It says, in smart office buildings, network infrastructure is often a significant consideration during solution deployment. How do PointGrab and Metricus streamline the process to ensure a smooth and efficient deployment? So I think that's an interesting question, because what we're saying here is we might have sensors like PointGrab sensors, which are power over Ethernet. They rely on an Ethernet infrastructure that are being in place, a network infrastructure. How do we ensure that that network infrastructure is compatible with the sensor and that there is a sort of a handoff to whoever's that actually physically installing the sensor can get it to communicate with the platform?
I want to touch that on two ways. One, first, definitely, today you can deploy the sensors with a PoE cable or with a Wi-Fi connection. And definitely the connectivity within the office is an issue. And of course, you need to have the technology support you to tell you where is the issue. If there is an issue, where is the issue? Is it the sensor itself? Is it the sensor to the local network, or is it the local network to the cloud? And over my year here, I saw a lot of events of various types where you'll be surprised how many offices in the world today are just disconnecting from the cloud as a whole. That's not one sensor, it's all of them suddenly. What we came up with recently, I think it was Q4, where we started introducing proactive support. So going back to that, multiple people are involved in the project, and the project is now operative. It's maybe 2 years down the road, but they don't know if a sensor is off because of some networking issue, maybe a local switch port or even a whole switch, or indeed a specific sensor is failing. And we have a full warranty, so we can replace it easily. Just we need to know it's there. And so we came up with this proactive support to say to the customer, hey guys, you know that sensor A, B on floor 17 is showing red for 2 days already? Maybe check out the networking. And it usually is a networking issue. So indeed, just need to be proactive about it, need to be aware of it, and go and fix it. There is an element, if going back to services, there is an element of servicing the infrastructure to make sure it's delivering the data that you're expecting.
Awesome. Thanks for that. And Michael, anything to add to that?
No, not really. I think the main thing is that if it's a new fit out, which they generally are, or retrofit, that as Amir said, the connectivity is there and the connectivity is tested to make sure, when you start to test and you start to give the data back, that it's reliable, right? And I think every customer has a different network and different network restrictions and different security protocols and different ports that are allowed open or closed, and it's only outbound and all that sort of stuff. So there's generally teething problems, but I think the beauty of the PointGrab solution is that it's only outbound ports. And the solution is flexible, right? That's the other thing, that you can move them about as much as needed. So yeah, I don't have much to add to what Amir said.
No, awesome. Thanks for that. And I think just worst case scenario there, because we've had instances where we've had our engineers, deployment engineers, carry with them sort of a PoE injector and a switch and a router so that they can actually connect to the sensor, configure it, see what the sensor is seeing, and then place it on the ceiling just because the customer network wasn't ready. So even after all that, there can be instances that we can run into where for some reason, when the engineers are on site, the sensors are not able to get through the firewall, for example, or maybe there were changes made to the network after it was tested. And so it's having those backup options in place, which obviously comes from the experience of kind of doing this work and coming across these challenges.
Experience counts.
Exactly. So I think as we kind of come to a close, I want to just talk a little bit about kind of what are the immediate next steps that partners can take looking into this space. So, as I kind of mentioned, Ingram Micro have built a range of services to support the partners throughout this journey. So that can be anything from, pre-sale, sales support to the physical implementation, like we spoke about, the solution design, but also the post-install support as well. And essentially what I'm saying here is that we can hold your hand as much or as little as required. And at the same time, we want to make sure we open up opportunities for partners to build their own value-add services, as we discussed, and get enabled as they kind of go on this journey with us. So for any partner that's sort of interested in taking this discussion further, we are offering workshops, which can be face-to-face or remote, to spend some time with your teams, understand your capabilities, your market, and help you create a plan to sort of take these solutions to the market. And again, this is open to partners with all types of existing capabilities. And some of our partners have already booked slots, but I believe we have around 3 to 4 slots open for Feb. So if you're interested, please do get in touch. You can write to us at aiot@ingrammicro.com. So before we close, I just wanted to pass on to you again, Michael and Amir, if there's anything you want to add to today's conversation that you think is going to help our partners and customers go on to this journey. Any final thoughts?
I think from a partner perspective, given the amount of work the 3 companies have all done together, using you guys as the single point of contact and a funnel to go through makes a hell of a lot of sense. You guys have put a lot of time and effort and money into making sure you're building this out. So I would recommend people come and talk to you guys. But I think the only way we all win is to work together, right? You can't, to give you an idea of size, there are 600,000 commercial buildings of 10,000 square feet or above in the UK, and there are 6 million of those in the US. So that doesn't include Europe or APAC or anywhere else, right? So I'm okay with a tiny percentage of that for all of us, and we will all make a lot of money. But doing it in partnership will only help us, and doing it in partnership will only help our customers. If we don't do that, then we're going to make it hard work for everyone. And then the customer will be like, this is too much hard work. I'm not going to do this. But I think the time and effort you guys have put in to build partnership programs, Prankit, and working with us and others, it makes a lot of sense for people to come to you guys to figure out how much of it they want to do and how much of it they want to get you guys to do. I think that's the right way forward.
Yeah, I can just add to that. Of course, Prankit, I totally agree with Michael's perspective on your role here. But I think in specific, all 3 companies, their strategy, their business is about partnerships. It's about the ability to build the ecosystem. This is why it's very easy for us to collaborate, because this is how we see the world. There is the end customer, we need to serve it, and there is the ecosystem of capabilities that we all 3 of the companies are actually embracing as the right strategy to the market. So excellent. Thank you for hosting this. And Michael, thank you for the time. It was great.
Pleasure. The same to you,
awesome.
gents.
Well, thank you very much. I think if there's one word that our partners can take away from today, it is partnership. And again, we're here for that. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're very happy to take you on this journey. So yeah, thanks, Michael, Amir, for your time. And thanks to all the audience that's joined us and the questions we got. I hope we do many more of these in the coming months.
Same.
Agreed. Thanks all. Take care.
Thanks all. Cheers. Bye-bye.